Listen closely. You hear it? You will hear the laughter of thousands as the sky opens up.
The internet is full of creepy and disturbing entities and creatures, especially when it relates to analog horror. And on this channel, I've gone over many of those disturbing entities. It's my job, I do it all the time. But I have been on a journey myself to try to find what is the most disturbing and uncanny and also cool entity group that I could find in the analog horror niche. And on this trip to find the most disturbing media I could, I found Dr. Nowhere. What followed my discovery of Dr. Nowhere was a several-day deep dive for me into the lore and the entities and creatures therein. So in this video today, I will be explaining all 9 entities in the lore of Dr. Nowhere, their stories, their designs, every single thing you need to know about them, all right here in this one video. Pretty much if you clicked on this video to hear like 25 minutes of entity explanations, then you're in the right place. Congrats. So before I hop into all of the overwhelming lore and storylines and descriptions of all these entities, I want to discuss what Dr. Nowhere actually is as a series. That way you guys know what I'm talking about. Dr. Nowhere is an analog horror series here on YouTube created by a guy named Silas Orion, who apparently, according to his YouTube bio, is an 18-year-old artist and designer. Bro thinks he's Kane Pixels with his YouTube bio. Nevertheless, the Dr. Nowhere channel features 10 short found footage style VHS videos that showcase these strange entities that I'm going to be discussing today. There are various storylines woven throughout these videos. A lot of it relates to childhood trauma. If you ever watched Jack Stauber's videos, these are pretty similar. They kind of have the same note. Plus, there's one video on the Dr. Nowhere channel that's just advertising a plushie that he made. Who would do that? Not me. But the main purpose of these videos is to serve as a sort of descriptor or showcase of the entities and designs that Silas Orion has drawn and created. This series as a whole, with its storylines and plots, is still in its infancy. It's pretty new, but I'm just here today to discuss the creatures and the entities, their physical makeup, where they come from, how they fit into the lore. That's what this video is for. And with all that introduction out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into those explanations, starting with the first and most famous creature, the Boiled One. So the Boiled One is probably the most famous creature that comes from this lore. Undoubtedly, you've seen the face and thumbnails, whether it's reactions or maybe the Wendigoon thumbnail. But what you didn't know, maybe, is that the Boiled One is also known as Fin 228. As far as its physical description and chemical makeup, the Boiled One is a very, very tall, lanky, dark humanoid with very spindly features. Its body is really elongated and there's nothing else of note on its actual torso. The main point of interest comes when you get to its head, because on its face and its head area is a disgusting looking humanish face that seems to be melted or boiled or incinerated. The face's proportions are distorted and warped, and it looks very uncanny to say the least. In the lore system, the entity is a direct cognito hazard, which means just by you seeing it, you are going to be under its effects. You're welcome. It can appear in broadcasts on television, on pictures on your phone, on your PC, your PS4, anything. And if you do end up seeing and staring at a Boiled One, then you're probably going to be screwed, and I'm going to mention why in a second. It is said that if you look at an instance of the Boiled One for long enough to really study its face and get a good image of it, then the person who's doing the staring will end up falling into a pseudo-coma, which is essentially just a coma, but you'll be paralyzed forever and you won't be able to move your body ever again. The only part of you that you can maneuver is your eyes, so you can blink and you can kind of take in outside stimuli, but you can't do anything about it because the entity paralyzed you. Now, the real danger with the Boiled One, it doesn't outright kill you. It doesn't do you that justice. In fact, it just incapacitates you and turns you into this comatose victim, where then it'll plague your mind. And since you can still blink, some people have been able to kind of describe what they're feeling using Morse code. And several people have been able to show this very disturbing example of what I'm about to read here. Victims claim that they cannot unsee the face of the boiled one. It's always in their eyesight, in their mind. They claim to constantly hear the sound of trumpets playing, almost as if they're raining from the heavens. And they constantly get these visions of the clouds ripping open and people screaming. Millions and millions of people screaming and celebrating. All the while, the voice of the boiled one is in their head, it's in their ears, and it's in their eyesight, talking and disparaging the victim. The boiled one made its first appearance in this lore system on a TV broadcast of a rerun of a children's show on a specific episode known as Tree of Heaven. During this hijacked broadcast, the boiled one was able to infect about 500 different people, and from then on, it spread like wildfire. So what powers does this entity have? What does it actually control? I mean, is it just a scary thing that makes you go into a coma? No, it's not that simple. It gets worse. Because the boiled one is able to manipulate its own biology and your biology. It can grow itself into any physical size and kind of stretch out and do whatever movements it wants, but it also can control your body, especially when you're in the comatose state. But beyond this, it also can manipulate time, reality, and the entire idea of conception. It can also manipulate the spiritual realms of reality too, and in fact, it's been kind of akin to a demon of some sorts. It can control nightmares, it can control visions, it can control dreams, and it literally seems to be omniscient. Now, lucky for you, there are a couple ways that you can survive an encounter with the instances of the boiled one. These are kind of unorthodox, pun intended, but you need to do the following if you want to survive. First of all, you can take preventative measures by just not looking at the thing. If you see it on a broadcast or on your screen, just chuck that out of the way, don't look at it. But if you do keep looking at it, or if you're entranced, try to get some earplugs on or some noise-canceling headphones. And then the next step is to go find your nearest Bible and open it up to Psalm 91:10. And at this point, you better pray to God that you're saved. One of the most disturbing things about this entity is how its voice is. It's almost comforting, but it's also extremely uncanny, to the point where it kind of just sends shivers down your spine, literally and physically. Think of the boiled one as some sort of demon that is sent to be like a plague on humanity. And if you do it like that, it kind of makes sense why it acts the way it does. It almost is like it wants to devour your soul. It doesn't want to eat your corpse. It doesn't want to devour your flesh. It wants to get inside of you and take over whatever's up there. And that's pretty scary to think about, I gotta say. The locust. So the locust also goes by the name the thumper, and you can see why from this clip. The locust is actually the main antagonist of the entire Dr. Nowhere series. It is pretty evil from its basis, more so than the boiled one, I think. The boiled one's more rare. Physically, the locust is a jet black, stick skinny entity, and it takes the basic appearance of an elongated human that's been like squeezed out, kinda. It is extremely wiry, and it stands at about 11 feet tall. The face of the entity is really the only thing of note, and it's very pale, very tan, and it looks lifeless in its eyes. And where regular eyes should be, two huge black holes exist. Another feature of the entity that stands out is its hands. They kind of end in these like sharp points, and they use those sharp fingernail point things to break through screens and attack victims. And that's where they get the name thumpers from. They thump on the screen until they literally and physically smash through the screen, jump into your reality, grab you with those fingers, and drag you back. Now, on the second ever video on Dr. Nowhere's channel, if you watch it, you can see at the very end of it that the thumper or the locust does not consume the outside human flesh. It only consumes the inside. Because in that video, it says the body was untouched, which I don't know if that's more disturbing. I think it is. I think it definitely is more disturbing than eating everything. But essentially, the locust is behind a screen and it smashes through that screen in order to get its victim, pull them in, and then it gets inside there and devours all the internal stuff. When you typically see or encounter a locust, it'll always be in this similar scenario. It'll be in some kind of room with retro wallpaper that kind of looks backroomsy, low-key. And the entity will kind of act almost childlike. It acts innocent. It'll whisper weird things and just kind of murmur around. That way you kind of get to watching it. You're entranced by it. But of course, all that is a facade because, like I said, it wants to eat your insides. The way to survive an encounter with the locust/thumper is pretty simple as well. Number one, turn off the TV the second you see it appear, or your screen or your phone or whatever. And one step further after that, destroy whatever it just appeared on. That way it can't ever pop back up again. The likelihood is it only had that one tunnel to your reality through that one TV or that one screen. The most disturbing part of this entity is how it acts as a child. It acts innocent and it acts like it's not this evil demon thing that it is, in order for you to kind of sit there and watch it. And when you're least expecting, it'll break through, jump into whatever room you're at, and you can hide, but it'll eventually find you and devour your veins, organs, entrails, all that good stuff. The sweet meats, they call it. Filbus. Now, Filbus is probably the most unique entity on this entire list, and that's for good reason. Filbus is an elongated, oblong, very weird looking crooked humanoid figure with a very weird top hat on top of its head. He's specifically known for his strange and bizarre movements and his mannerisms, and he always waves and kind of gesticulates to the screens that he appears on. As you can see, there's kind of a theme here with these entities appearing on screens and attacking you. That's the vibe of this analog horror series. The body of Filbus is jet black, and there's really nothing else to discern about it, other than when you get to its head and you get this weird looking whimsical face. From the outside, he kind of looks like a happy little dude just waving around, but yeah, he leads a cult. What cult does he lead, you may ask? He leads the cult named Filbism. Now, this is going to sound wild. Don't click off the video yet, just stay with me. But Filbism in this lore system is the spiritual and also kind of political movement of eating, consuming, and devouring, like, chairs. Filbusts eat chairs in this lore, and Filbus is kind of like this god entity in their religion. So to honor Filbus, his followers, his loyal credence, they eat chairs to kind of give sacrifice to him. It's not the craziest thing I've heard. In this system, there's entire chat rooms and 4chan boxes that talk about safe ways to devour chairs and what chairs taste the best and what material tastes the best, yada yada yada. But if you can look at Filbus, his character design, his legs and arms are shaped in the form of a chair. He looks like a giant chair with a face. So Filbus gathers his cult members by hijacking broadcasts on TV and kind of advertising himself with commercials. Now, the one you've probably already seen, he uses these commercials to recruit new people and to get more people to eat chairs. Nice. So if for some reason you find yourself viewing Filbus and you don't want to be a chair eater, then you don't have to. Just turn the screen off, destroy it. That's the best way. Filbus's intentions are not like horrible. He's not this entity that wants to consume people's flesh or organs or whatever, like the locust or the boiled one, but he still wants to get people to eat chairs, and I'm not really sure that's any better than wanting to eat hearts and organs. Let me know in the comments. Fleshbeds or mattress folk. Now, for once, these entities are pretty much just like what their name suggests. They appear to be a parasitic sub-humanoid type creature that lives and breeds mattresses. They live inside of them and they kind of have a symbiotic relationship with them. They lurk around in the real world and they consume victims at a pretty alarming rate, actually. What these parasites do is they lay dormant inside of the mattress and they kind of use it as their home base, and they will not be awoken until several nights in a row of being over 70 degrees. So think of like a chicken egg, how they can't hatch unless they're like really warm. These parasites, these mattress folk, they don't come out unless the mattress is very warm. But what makes mattresses warm, guys? Laying on them. And what does everybody do every single night? They lay on the mattress. So if your mattress feels warm for whatever reason, you might have a parasite inside that wants to eat you. Once awoken from this dormancy and this sleep state, the parasite will reach out from the side of the bed, grab you, and pull you inside the mattress to begin to digest you limb from limb. The first victim of a mattress folk entity that was documented was by a girl named Alice, and she kind of went missing from her room with no sign. No one knew where she went, but after a few days, the smell of sulfur and rot began to emanate from her mattress. Then the mattress was cut open and looked inside of, and they saw Alice's half-digested corpse inside the mattress. But it wasn't just Alice's corpse they found inside the mattress. They found hundreds of other human bones, tissues, bodily fluids, and DNA tracing all the way back to the 1600s inside that mattress. That's right, this mattress folk thing has been digesting for a long time. They were able to neutralize the actual parasite humanoid itself, and they realized that it literally is just a subhuman that uses mattresses as a sort of symbiote. So like I said, if your mattress feels kind of warm, you better get a new mattress. Breathmen. Now these are very, very disturbing entities that only live in a sort of parallel reality to ours. That reality inside the lore is known as the headless macrocosm. And to keep it as simple as possible, the headless macrocosm is a mirrored reality just like Earth, except every single person that would be regularly in Earth has been replaced by one of these headless breathmen. Now this alternate reality is only accessed by lucid dreaming. So falling asleep, dreaming of this macrocosm, and then waking up and realizing you're awake, then you can be stuck here. But anyways, back to the entity known as the breathmen. These creatures are very tall, very slender entities that are white, very, very pale, and they look like they're struggling to live. They seem to be barely alive, almost as if they're trees that slightly breathe in and out, and you can kind of see their chest moving. Every time you walk past one, you can hear it moaning and grasping at life. It almost seems like it's not alive or it's about to die or something. It seems like its very existence hurts. These creatures are usually stationary and their arms are usually down to their sides, and they kind of just sit around this macrocosm doing nothing but breathing in and out. I don't know why I just breathed. You guys know how to breathe. I don't know why I needed to show you that, but I did. Now in this lore system from Dr. Nowhere, anybody from any parallel universe can fall asleep and wake up here in the macrocosm. So it's not just people from Earth, there could be people from different dimensions there as well. Some people get stuck here in this alternate reality, and they're forced to live as sort of scavengers, and they can be usually seen inside buildings hiding from these breathmen because they're kind of scary looking, and they are very scary in general. But remember how I said that the breathmen are usually kind of motionless and they kind of just stand there? That's true, except in one major significant case. You see, one time a man was walking in a field here in the macrocosm alternate reality when he accidentally brushed up and touched a breathman. He touched his torso or whatever. Then before the guy knew what was going on, the entity reached out with two arms, grabbed the man, ripped his head off and through his body, and then proceeded to shove his head onto the entity's body. Because breathmen do not have heads. They're all headless. They just look like tree stumps. So this creature took the head of that guy, shoved it on top of his head like a Lego piece, and then tried to become that guy. The man's name was Michael Telford, and once the breathman took Michael Telford's head and put it on its head, it was able to get back to Earth, and it was able to infiltrate our reality. We know this because a family saw the entity in their backyard. They called the police, freaking out because there was a giant humanoid with a fake head on top, and they took this picture of the entity where it's blurred out, but that's where Michael's head was. All they saw was this decaying, rotten head on top of a decaying, breathing body. That breathman was detained, neutralized by authorities, and was taken to a secure testing site where it was discovered that they think the breathman was trying to kind of eat Michael's reality and become Michael. Yeah, so it wanted to become human so bad that it was kind of eating Michael's memories and devouring his soul, trying to completely encapsulate what it was to be him. It seems like all these breathmen in the macrocosm are kind of just stuck there in agony, wanting to become human, wanting to be what they used to be, but they're stuck there. And the only way they can get back is by taking the head and the consciousness of humans and kind of using that to mold their way back into reality. But most aren't able to do this, so they're forced to just very painfully breathe forever and ever and ever. The obelisks of enlightenment. What a name that is. Now, these entities in the lore are a group of very, very rare monolithic structures that are planted at random parts around our globe. They usually find themselves in remote parts away from masses of people, and they've been seen in places like the pyramids and also the Bermuda Triangle, and even more disturbingly, they've been seen on the moon. They can appear in groups of 1 to 18, and they always face perfect north. They have these weird faces on them, and they always look north. Physically, the entities are these giant, almost stone-looking creatures that are in the shape of pillars, and the only link to humanity they have is almost a human face at the top of them. Above that, coming out of their heads and out of their sides, are these rope-like organ-looking things that connect up to the sky, and it's been proven that these ropes are made from human organs. All of these monoliths are said to be perfectly enlightened, and they seem to know all the answers to everything in the universe. They're very wise, although they don't want to share their information with humans for some reason. Instead, they emit these noises and these sounds of angelic singing and these entrancing musical notes in order to lure people towards them. Now, once they lure people towards them, these obelisks will fill those people with all of this information. They will enlighten the people, and whoever can't take the enlightenment, their heads will explode. Literally, they will explode. So just by getting physically close to these obelisks, to these monoliths, humans are filled with enlightenment. They're given the answers to everything in the universe, all the burning questions. Like, where'd my hair go? For example. What happened to that, guys? I don't know. But they're given the answers to everything. Somebody knows where it went. And like I said, if they can take it, then they'll reach out with those little organ ropes, they'll pull the human in, and they will devour the human to get their knowledge too. It's unknown why the obelisks do this, and it's unknown how they're connected to the other creatures in the Dr. Nowhere universe, but they play a very important role because they seem to be very powerful. Almost godlike entities, if I was to classify it as that. There's a quote from the series that talks about these obelisks, and it's pretty disturbing to say the least, but it says, "No physical pain could ever outweigh the agony of infinite knowledge." If you've ever seen any media or heard of All Tomorrows, that's exactly what this seems like, a kind of All Tomorrows thing, where they want to torture humanity, and they kind of want to play with their food, so to speak. We're their food, in this case. Now, those entities that I just explained were the main 6 from the main parts of the series. These entities are featured in videos on Dr. Nowhere channel. They're explained there, they're talked about there, they're in the lore, but there are 3 more creatures that are not really talked about as much. These are other creations from Silas Orion, and I also want to dive into them because they're pretty cool. Too cool not to mention. This will be like a lightning round, so to say. So the next like 3 or 4 minutes, I'll be explaining these creatures fast. The creatures are Guilt, Cone Zones, and Oncligers. So the Guilt creature was first seen on the Dr. Nowhere channel in a video called The Boy and the Bath, where essentially it's a storyline of parents who left their boy in a bathtub, the boy since deceased, and Guilt, this monster, kind of came back to haunt the parents' psyche, blaming them for the boy's death. The entity is very tall, very wiry, very spindly, and he is seen in a shower and in a crib in the video, and he says these very disturbing things, like, "I know you heard me," or "It was all your fault," and stuff like that. Like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of the stuff relates to childhood trauma, and that's obviously what Guilt is. This giant, weird-looking, spindly creature with roots growing out of its neck symbolizes the guilt that the parents have of letting their kid pass away. Cone Zones are next, and these are very, very big, elongated humanoids, much like all the other creatures in this lore system, except these creatures have giant cone shapes atop their heads. Their faces are pale, their eyes are sorrowful, and they look very, very sad constantly. The Cone Zones look like the embodiment of death, pretty much. They essentially feast on derealization and negativity and hatred, all of the negative emotions that humans can have. And they do this by kind of torturing and tormenting groups of people, following them around, and just kind of scaring them to death. It's said that they want to consume the reality of their victim. So they do this by tormenting everybody that they come in contact with and almost just taking their entire psyche and enveloping it. They hunt in packs sometimes, and they've been seen together. Usually they hunt or kind of hunt through screens as well, but they also do it in real life, and there's several pictures that you've been seeing of that happening. Lastly, for this video today are the entities known as Oncligers or Ankligers, and these are very, very weird, to say the least. In the lore system, they are considered divine, almost angel-like, and they're akin to the likes of Gabriel the Archangel and things like that. There's lots of relation to heaven and hell and everything in this entire Dr. Nowhere series, but these entities specifically relate to that one-to-one. They take the visual appearance of a humanoid that's wearing some kind of pitch black coat or like clothing of some sort, and of course their notable feature is where a head would be is instead a giant glowing star with a singular eye in the middle of that star. They look like something right out of the book of Revelations in the Bible. They do look very biblical, and that's also what they represent in lore. They're very enigmatic, and they're an omen of death inside of this system, and they only appear to people who have committed very bad atrocities, very bad sins, you could say. Specifically, they appear to people who they think have committed unredeemable acts, things that you can't make your way out of. And when they come to you, they will offer you either a chance at redemption, or they will just incinerate and melt you with their star face. So you better just get lucky, because there's no way to predict what they're gonna do. They'll give you that last chance to plead your case, why you did it, why you think you deserve another chance, and if you pass their test, they'll let you go. And if not, like I said, they're gonna melt you to your atoms. These entities kind of act like the balance of good and evil in this entire lore system. There's been a lot of this talk of heaven, hell, sin, guilt, trauma, and these entities kind of act like the judge, the jury, and the executioner to all of that. They might be the most powerful ones, maybe up there with the obelisks, but these things can move, and I don't think the obelisks can really, so I'm gonna say these are the most powerful ones so far in the Dr. Nowhere series. But that was the lightning round of the 3 entities that were not really focused on in the Dr. Nowhere analog horror, but also were created by Mr. Orion himself, so I hope you enjoyed that. But with those explanations done, that was all of the entities that were mainly in the Dr. Nowhere universe. I love the art design that Orion uses in his works. I love the entire vibe he's going for. As I said, it's pretty similar to the Jack Stauber thing, but it's its own creative way, and I really like the direction he's going. Hopefully he continues to produce videos, hopefully he continues to expand on the story more, and that way I can have more entities to talk about. If you have not watched the series in its entirety, I recommend you check that out. You're seriously missing out if you've not checked it out. It'll be down below in the description. Thank you to Mr. Dr. Nowhere for making all this stuff. It was very entertaining, very rewarding to watch, and hopefully you guys enjoy the video of me talking about all the entities, explaining all their lore, all that stuff. Leave a like on this video. If you want me to do more analog horror and internet horror kind of videos like this, I did the Vita Carnis videos. You guys like that, and tons of other stuff. Lots more coming. Thank you so much. Make sure all your notifications are on. That way you get notified when I do upload videos. I'm losing my voice if you can't tell. With that said, love and appreciate y'all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.